I'm R.A. Schwartz, along with my co-host Rachel Galligan, and welcome to the Winsidr Film Room. I'm honored this episode to welcome a member of the Canadian sports royal family, the 10th pick in the 2018 WNBA draft, WNBA All-Star, Kia Nurse. Welcome to the show. So glad to have you. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I am doing really well. We just wrapped up the training camp aspect of the season, ready to get going into the regular season now and play some games against somebody that's not our practice players. Going really well so far.
So the last time WNBA fans saw you was a little bit ago, semifinals against the Aces in 21. You were having, the team and you were having a tear of that late season push. It was so fun to watch that. But I'm curious for you, can you fill the fans in? Like, what's the last year and change been like for you?
Yeah, it's been an up and down year. And obviously I went down in that game like 30 seconds in, of course, right at the beginning. Ended up tearing my ACL. And so it's been basically a lot of rehab and a lot of recovery in that process. And so it took about 11 months to come back onto court. I ended up not making it back for WNBA season, just with conversations with the medical staff. It wasn't the smartest thing to come back at that time. And so we pushed it and ended up coming back for World Championships with Team Canada in Australia I want to say that was last August. And I don't even know if that was even better because we played 8 games in 10 days. So we really tested the knee out at that point, but everything kind of went really smoothly there. And from that point on, I went back to Toronto and Canada and spent my season with the Raptors doing their on-air stuff for TSN for pregame, postgame, halftime, Sports Center hits.
So cool.
Basically, whole thing. Basketball analyst. We did the men's and we did the women's tournament for our second year now. This is we've covered the women's tournament and given them full control shows and really emphasized a lot of the Canadians that are playing in the NCAA, giving them their flowers. But yeah, it's been rehabby, but also now just back to strength building, back to explosion building. I got this really incredible, I call them like, I don't even know what to call them. I guess they're like my practice squad back home of a group of different girls and guys who come in and we hoop. We do 2-on-2, we do 3-on-3, 4-on-4, and just to be in game shape to get some of those reads and those actions back into my mind. And so it has been a long 11 months plus then another 8 months in the off season to get back to where we are today. But very excited to have an opportunity to get back into the W and play here in Seattle.
I speak for everyone. We are so glad to have you back.
Yes. Well, I want to ask, as a Canadian, did you try and lobby Kathy to maybe get Seattle involved in a Canadian game?
Well, I was hoping that when it was announced that there was going to be a game in Canada, and I knew that it was prior, like it was in the works a couple of years ago, and then kind of COVID shut down the whole world. But I was like, oh, okay, like there's only 3 Canadians in the league at the time. Now there's 4 with Leticia and me here as well. But I was like, so that would mean like the 2 on Minnesota would play against me, right? Like, because that would make sense. All 3 of us in the building. Yeah. It didn't end up working out that way. They had the team selected prior to the free agency, even opening. So I hadn't talked to anybody, but they kept asking. They're like, do you know where you're going? I'm like, I haven't talked to anybody. So you gotta give me like free agency to figure out what's happening and where the like want is on both ends. Right. But I've been lobbying since the game has happened and before to next year having Seattle in the game, whether that's I flew into Vancouver and then drove down on my way here to training camp. I didn't know it was like 2 hours away. So we're close to Canada.
Oh, yeah.
I think this is a great place to have some Canadian fans.
We actually brought on a team member this year who lives up there. And I was like, oh, how far are you from Seattle? And she's like, it's only 2 hours. I drive down for games all the time. I was like, oh. Clearly, I don't know, not a geography expert. So how was camp? Obviously new scenery, new roster. It's a very different Seattle than what we're used to.
Yeah, it's very, like you said, new is probably like the most used word. I feel like I think we had 13 new people. We've got obviously rookies that have come in and played really well. We've had people come in like me, who just hasn't been in Seattle before. And so I thought camp was really good. The energy with this team is really fun. Like it's exciting to come to work every day. Pretty happy to be here every day. So that's nice. Seattle is a gorgeous city. I feel like everywhere I drive, I'm like, there's water, there's trees, water and trees. Boats are coming off the water and flying in there. Like it's fantastic. And so I think that transition has been really good. Camp itself, when you have so much new, you have to kind of implement basically everything all over again, right? So we did a lot of teaching in terms of offensive principles, defensive principles that Coach Noel and the staff wants us to really focus on. And you have to just figure out, this is the group that you have in front of you. What are the strengths of your group? What are the weaknesses of your group? And how do we kind of make those work together to find success? And I know that everybody's talked a lot about new this year. And I think looking around the league, there's a lot of new everywhere.
Sure.
There was so many different transactions, right, in the off season. And so every team is kind of going through a little bit. But I know this is very different for Seattle. They're very, used to seeing, Sue here and Stewie here. And the one thing I keep reminding people is like my entire career, played for almost 27 years. No, I'm 27 years old, 24 years. I've never played on the same team twice. Like it just change happens. And this is just a better version of that change. And so just shifting and finding ways for us to be successful with what we have here on the floor.
Last question before we jump into the film. I just always like this, because we're on the eve of the season. What are some personal goals you've set for yourself for this year?
Good question.
Yeah, I mean, the big goal is to just be healthy, right? And, get through an entire season. This is a longer season with 40 games. And this is a different load that my knee is now seeing. And it's a little bit different for me. I've never had knee problems before this. So, and I was one of those kids who just like go on and warm up because I could do that. Now I'm like 30 minutes. I need to like warm up and heat and move. So just kind of focusing a lot on the things that worked for me in the off season. It was the beauty of being injured, I guess, if there is a beauty in it, is that you have the opportunity to work on literally everything in your body. So I wasn't just fixing my knee, I was fixing my balances. I was, my ankle on the other side, if it wasn't feeling well, I was working with that. And so I got a lot stronger. And so I want to be able to get back into the paint. I think early in my W career, I spent a lot of time at the free throw line. And so that was something that I wanted to implement, putting more pressure on the rim, not only to get to the free throw line, but to be a playmaker and find the shooters on the outside. And then just have a consistent season. I think sometimes that's one of the hardest things to do, especially when you're someone like me who shoots a lot of threes, and the numbers on threes sometimes get kind of, it looks skewed sometimes. Like I feel like I'm shooting the ball really well, but I've shot a ton of threes. So like 30% on the threes might be okay for some people, but it's not Steph Curry. So, just, finding ways to be more consistent in that sense. And I know that my role here is going to rely on me to help space the floor and be a threat on the offensive end, but it's going to rely on me to be a good defender as well. And so that's one of the big things that I've focused on, is being able to keep people in front, being able to move the way my body wants to move now. It's different than what it was before, and that's okay. But play angles, be smart on the defensive end, and be able to kind of help my team out in that sense too.
Well, and I was just thinking to myself, what a perfect opportunity right now in Seattle with the change that's transpired and where you're at, kind of, again, getting back into the flow of things. Like, I mean, you've got to be out there. You're going to be a huge part of what this team is doing. So definitely super excited. For you this season, everything that you bring in, we are 100% pulling for you. Super happy to have you back. Okay, let's get down to business, the film room session of it. We might surprise you a little bit. We might have found a way to sneak in some Seattle Storm action early on. So, and then some of it we had to go back into the archives a little bit, but that's okay. We might have to do this again at the end of the season and pull some stuff, from the section.
You'll have many more clips, I promise.
Plenty. So basically what we're going to do, we're going to go through some offensive clips, some defensive clips. Just tell the viewer what you're seeing, as we're going through. Basically, I'll let it run through, we'll let it play, then we'll kind of go back and kind of go through it as slow as we can. Just break it down, what you're seeing, what kind of action is being ran on the court, whether it's terminology, whether it's just a read. You have complete freedom to analyze it and break it down as much as you want to. Like I said, we're here to learn from the best, and that is you. So right now we're going to jump in. It's going to be about 7 offensive clips. We're going to start with, you talked about 3-pointers right on cue, starting with a 3-pointer. And I love, it's kind of a little wing ball screen action. Defenders kind of switch a little bit. You shoot it kind of behind the screen. What are you seeing here?
Yeah, so this is like an early transition offensive opportunity for us. So Bonnie does a good job here of actually getting the defense to kind of shift one way. And on the backside, Sadie's is really good as an offensive passer. Does a good job of just flipping it. Dinah Tarasi goes under to switch. And I knew Breezy was going to be a little bit late, so I could rise up and get that shot off. As a 3-point shooter, a big thing that I'm looking at when I come off of screens is, did the defense go under? If they go under, then it's, a hand down, man down situation. And putting that up there would force them to go over in the next couple of, plays or possessions that we have, which is important. So as long as I can see the rim and I can get my feet set, that's typically a pretty good shot for me. And I came off here, saw the rim early and got my inside foot down and then went straight up on it. It's like a bit of a pistol action, is what I would say most people would call this on the wing side.
I like that. And I was going to say, you don't need a whole lot of space to get your shot off. I mean, that's a pretty decent contest. Even though she was a half a second behind, that was a pretty good contest.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad. I think my shot is slow, but when I watch it on film, I'm like, that's pretty fast. I didn't need to shoot that fast. So I appreciate that. Something that we've really worked on is in the off season too. We worked a lot on spacing and just getting 3 or 4 behind that 3-point line.
All right, so next one we got, it looks like we're showing your versatility here. Again, size, rebounding, your ability to read the flight of the basketball. I mean, just being able to advance the ball and transition yourself, something you've always been able to do throughout the course of your career. But what are you thinking in this scenario? Again, you grab the rebound, you come down, and just all of a sudden, bang, bang.
Oh, we came right down. We shot a 3. I didn't know what was happening on that, but I've seen this, but I don't remember it. Yeah, I think defensively, when you have BG beside you, that makes life quite a bit different, just because she obviously can come over and contest shots. But I got the rebound and I was moving and I didn't see anybody in front of me. So I spent most of my life as a point guard. So bringing the ball up is not necessarily like the most scary thing for me. But here I actually gave Sloot a little bit of an in and out the closer that I got to that 3-point line. And she took a step back. So as I started coming down here, that lane that I was in was open. Sloot kind of bit on my in and out. And again, time and space, typically an in and out dribble for me, or any kind of like ball handling move, which I don't use a ton of, is more of a balanced step once I get to my 3. So I feel like if I'm balanced, I've got a good chance at it. But she bites a little bit, so you can see the space between her feet and me. I know she's smaller, so her contest can't block me. And I just rose up on that one. I did like that play. That was a good
Can
play.
I just say that part of my favorite part of this play, and we'll get into this on the defensive end, is your head on a swivel. The way you look back and you check, okay, how many behind me, how many in front of me? That's a heads up smart play.
What are you looking for there? Like, I know you don't remember.
The moment I get the ball, like if I'm playing within that kind of 3/4, so between the 3-point lines, the neutral zone, essentially, my mind is always trying to look left to right to see basically who's running where. So if I'm looking in this scenario, I can see Megan running up the side. Closest to us here, Breezy's coming down the middle, and I know Breezy likes to run rim run, so she's going to run straight. Nobody is taken up that corner wing yet because BG's behind, which means Sky is most likely in this deep corner that we can't see.
Yep.
And so I have a ton of space to work. If I go to the rim here, I'm probably going to get blocked because where Breezy is and her defender is right there. So I gave myself an opportunity to fake that and get her to bounce, just give myself a little bit of space. Also, that's a confident shot right there. I think I hit one because I started backing up before that one in, so I was very confident about that one.
Like that's a gutsy shot right there.
You knew that was going in by the time you got that rebound. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that one felt good. Clearly, I felt something about that one.
A little more 3 action for you. I think we've got some screen, maybe potential dribble handoff action here. So that's quick action. But it's making the defenders have to read and make decisions on how they want to play this. So break this down for me, because this one's intriguing to me.
Yeah, so as Sky brings this one down mid-court, I'm creeping up, which means I'm more than likely setting a flare screen on Sky. So the moment she lets go of this ball, my job is to hit hers. So I come up and set a flare screen on Jefferson, and that forces Marina Mabry to take a little bit of a stop a second. She starts to go under the screen there. Again, it's if you go under on me, I'm more than likely going to stop and shoot it behind and try to force you to come over. But those are kind of just like those quick actions and kind of semi-transition, I would say. With the first one we saw was a bit semi-transition. This one again is semi-transition. Those are where I feel like I'm at probably my best in my offensive game on the half court side, because there's so much space. On this side of the floor, you have to defend 2. You have to defend me and Sky with 2. And because they're hugged up on Breezy and she goes so far underneath, I have enough time and space to see the rim. And so that's kind of a big piece of what I like to do, is actually stand and shoot behind those, because that's 1, 2, probably probably 1 full second to get my feet set before a hand comes up to contest. So
Well, there was not a
That's-
hand on this contest, which is,
no.
you got
The
to
other
take.
big thing that I've always learned and kind of lived off of as a 3-point shooter is the better screens that you set for someone else, the more open that you are going to be. If you
Love
set a great screen and they're open, awesome. Then you got your teammate open and they got a good shot. You probably scored and you go down the other way. If I set a good screen and 2 go with her, then I'm going to be wide open coming off of that, off the flare screens. So that's one of the harder things to do as a defender, is be the defender of the flare that then comes off the ball if they use good pace.
I'm very excited to see you shooting behind some Mercedes Russell picks, just saying.
Her passes are fantastic and they're so fast.
All right, looks like we've got, we'll run this one through, maybe it's a little bit of a turnover, and again, just getting out and converting into, look at you rim running right there. My God, got some jets on you on that one.
Back in the day when I was, no, that's what my ACL was from. I'm like, back in the day when I used to rim run. No, this one was just a good play here. Ball pressure from Sky ends up forcing a turnover as Quigley comes off of this. And Diana Taurasi is probably one of the best in the game of just looking up and wanting to throw ahead, and that's something she does. So I knew I was in a foot race right here with Copper. And if I could get 2 or 3 steps on her, Breezy's running, Diana's looking at Breezy. This is the hard thing. If Diana's looking away, she might pass to you. So you have to pay attention because she's really good at the no looks in transition as well. But yeah, essentially this is just a foot race on the back end. I think this is Quigley. Quigley's forced to take Diana because she will probably pull up in transition if you don't guard her. Breezy takes her defender with her as well. And that gives me the opportunity on the backside to get out. So transition, anytime I can get an easy bucket, sometimes that's what you need as a shooter, because sometimes your first shot won't fall. So just to get 1 or 2 that go into the rim. But yeah, transition was definitely somewhere that I liked to play because it's really like 3 sprint steps and then you can probably actually jog it out, but you just have to win the initial foot race, which was what I actually liked to do when I ran track and cross country. So it's a big piece of that.
Love it. Love it. What events did you do real quick?
Track, I was the anchor in the 100, the 4x1. I did the 100, I did the 400, I did the 800, I did the mile, and I did the 200. Yeah, but I was really only good at the short distances. I was only in the long distances because I was good at cross country. But I don't know, something about running the track versus running in the forest was like not for me.
I get that as a runner.
All right. This is a little bit of an inside out. I mean, anytime Griner's touching the ball in the paint, that's going to shift the entire defense. So you hear coaches talk about all the time, we want to play from the inside out, especially when you've got Brittany Griner on your team. So, just nothing crazy here, but I feel like you're going to talk a lot about that.
Well,
Yeah,
wait a second.
I mean,
sorry to interrupt. Not crazy. Like, let's not downplay that drive and that take. Like, that was a great
I'm
take.
talking in terms of action.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, there's not a ton that happens here. Obviously, Chicago sends a double. Most people do send doubles to Brittany Griner. So on the backside as a shooter, my job is to kind of get into the gaps. So originally your first thought process as a guard is what's the angle where she can see me. So when are we looking eye to eye? Because that's the way that I know that she can make that pass and don't stand behind a defender. So I actually lifted out of, I want to say I was started in the corner on that possession. I lifted out here as the rotation came. Typically, I mean, I had space to shoot that, but because the pass was a little over my head and I kind of had to jump for it, I came down. I saw Vandersloot. So her front leg there is too high, coming in the wrong direction. So I can attack that front leg, come down the middle of this one. And then there was only 2 seconds left. So I knew, like, they were counting down. So I knew that I had to get a shot up, get a little shoulder into her while she's on the side of me. And then, I don't know, that might've been a prayer on that one.
But I will say this, like, throughout your career, you have been exceptional at those plays. Like, you do, and you talked about this, like, before, I think it was before we started recording, but like back in your New York Liberty days, like, I remember watching and just being like jaw dropping at some of your takes to the paint. Like, you have no concern for your body and you just get in there and find good angles to get a shot up, and you do it and you make a lot of them.
I'll be honest with you. I have much more concern for my body going in there nowadays. So I land more. I'm also, like I said, I put on a lot of muscle going through this. It's funny as I look at pictures of my legs prior to my ACL to now, and I'm like, wow, that's a whole different leg. And so I'm a much more balanced player when I go in there. I've also tried to add a couple things around the rim, around bigger players and my ability to score there. But if I can knock down the three, and I think that's something that's on a scouting report for a lot of people's, you really don't want to give me wide open threes because those ones are pretty much cash. You probably want to try and run me off a line or make me use my dribble to get into it. But my ability to knock down the three forces people to come out to me. So making a read, which this clip I think is a pretty similar clip in that sense, would then be, so she knows she has to come contest, her hands are high and she's out of position instantly. That's when I use my shot fake to kind of get into the lane. And I had knocked down, we watched the earlier three, I'd already knocked down 2 or 3 threes by this point. So once I get into that, then I know for a fact that they're going to come close out to me and try and run me off the line. And I specifically remember in this game, I think Chicago's coach was yelling, "Don't foul, don't foul." So when I get in there, I do a good job of drawing fouls. So I heard him say that. So I was like, okay, she's not going to swing or whack me. So I have time to finish this one off of 1 foot. And I think that was kind of how I ended up getting into that finish. But I definitely had hit 3 threes before this. So you run out with your hands up, I'm going to shot fake you and just attack your top foot, which all the empty space was on that side. Yeah.
So fun to see your arsenal in terms of just being able to counter, and isn't that what it's all about, right? At this level and playing at the highest levels. But I will say your body control in the paint and your ability to finish with contact has always been one of the most impressive aspects that I've always respected of your game. So yeah, we talk about your shooting a lot, but these takes, once you've hit a couple and you're really just killing people and they've got to make a decision, love it. That's what makes you great, makes you who you are. I think we've got one more potentially. Let's run this one through.
I will say I would be remiss if I didn't bring it up. You still hold the record for best 3-point percentage in all of March Madness. Just saying.
I sure do. That came up on our coverage this year, actually, because my record got broken. But I was like, how many attempts did she have? And they're like, you shot 75%. I was like, yeah, it was a good year, guys. I don't know. And that's the thing. Like at UConn, I didn't shoot a lot of threes my first 2 years. I went to the rim. So all the stuff that you see me going to the rim is very much how I grew up playing, because I was always faster and stronger than people, so I could get past them. I'd probably take 2 or 3 charges a game, but that was that. Now I went to UConn. They were like, you need to knock down 3. So we stood there and we repped threes and I became a good 3-point shooter. So now coming off this ACL, the big piece is like put both of them back together and play a little bit more in that mid-range game. If they're going to run me off a 3-point line, stop and pop a pull-up J. But this, I don't know if I was supposed to call a timeout. I'm like almost certain that we were, but I'm also certain that I didn't hear that in the huddle. So yeah. So when we came out of it, I looked up and saw the shot clock. Vandersloot actually like took a step towards me to force me to pick up the ball. It was ingenious, now that I think about it. But it forced me to get into this Euro step thing that I tried. And my goodness, did it work. I think it was my balance. That step, I think, balanced me to actually look at the rim. And I just threw that. I threw that up there. Like I was shaking afterwards because I had no idea how that went in. And what's a great highlight.
And that was your first game winner. Is that correct?
I had one in Australia in our championships, but it wasn't like that. It was like I hit one, then we had to play defense. One of those possessions.
Yeah.
That was my first buzzer beater for sure.
That was pretty cool. I remember screaming on my couch after that one. That was pretty cool.
For the rest of the year, I shot half court shots using a Euro step.
Did you win any of them?
You know what? I hit for 2 weeks after, I'm pretty sure I hit like 2 or 3 of them. Then it went downhill. But I was on a roll for a minute there.
Let's go.
I respect that. Okay, we're switching gears here. We're getting into defense. Let's dive into it before we get going. What is your mentality when you approach the game on the defensive end of the floor? What would be your scouting report on yourself in terms of a defender?
A lot of times I'll use my strength it's my strength. So my physicality is a big piece of my game. It's something that I've always kind of gone to. And defensively, I'll do the same thing. So I'm typically a bit pesty. I will probably try and get up into my opponents just to force them to think about me, to know that I'm standing there with them. And I don't really mind switching on to bigs because I like to battle them. It's funny because Jewel here was like, did you play hockey? Because you really like to set screens and hit people. And I'm like, no, I just like to be physical.
A little bit different than pickleball.
yeah, I'm like, I feel like that's a little that's just me. But yeah, I think that's a big piece of it. And then playing angles is a lot. Like I'm coming more into the tendency side of things, the film side of things on what people like to do. But a lot of it's just trying to play angles and cut people off without allowing them to go downhill. And then I do a lot of chatting. Like I talk when I'm on defense, but a lot of it is more for myself, I would say. Like I will say, like, I'm in help, so I know that I'm supposed to be in help. Or like if I chat through what's happening on the defensive end, then I can kind of, it communicates to my teammates where I am or what I'm doing, but it also communicates to me what I need to be doing.
Just to clarify, you're not saying you're trash talking. You're talking about the defense.
I'm not a trash talker. I think if you see my personality in here, the moment I said something trash talk, you'd be like, what? Wow. So yeah, I know.
You don't strike me as that. Well, this is a really good segue from that. Again, I think you're pesky on this possession. You've got active hands. You're understanding, anticipating passing lanes, but then you just decide to pull a 3 because you're Candace and you can. So let's take a look.
I must have been real confident in this moment. So yeah, I
saw
the outlet pass. My poor, that's on Canadian crime right there. I mean to do that to my Canadian teammate. Yeah, I pulled this 3. Ooh, I'm different.
You did. You decided to take that.
Did it go in?
No, but you did get an offensive. You did get an offensive rebound. Not you, but your team did.
Yeah, I don't know why I took that. Just trying to make a read on the back end when people turn around. I can't believe I took that shot. Wow. Okay. Well, we got a rebound.
We're focusing on defense.
Yeah. Shout out to Breezy for getting that rebound. But yeah, I think I can see her eyes now and where they're gonna go to that outlet pass. So if I can get a deflection or my hands, like keeping your hands high is half the battle on defense, to force people to like pass around them or get a deflection like this where you can end up in a steal. Every possession is not going to end in a steal defensively, but if you put your hands up and it forced somebody else to make a pass that took 1 second longer, not even 1 second, if it took half a second longer, it gives your teammates an opportunity to get back into the play and whatever they're doing. So yeah, that was just a pretty good instinctual read. It's good to see that. Use that more.
But at the same time, it's easy. You could have easily seen that Achan had secured the ball and just start headed back. A little bit extra effort. Look what that did for your team. I mean, how many people in that scenario would make that play? So it might be a tiny thing, but like this is the stuff that coaches are hounding constantly, just that little extra effort, active hands, just trying to be a little more aggressive that make all the difference in the world. Let's talk about your rebounding a little bit. I mean, your size, we'll get through this clip and I think the next one is about rebounding, but like, how do you approach that aspect of the game and the flight of the ball when the shot is taken?
I mean, a lot of it is just, I am very, I'll be honest with you. If I don't think I can get the rebound, I'm not going to attempt to get the rebound. I'm going to try and box somebody out, or I'm going to do my job and get to the wing to get to the outlet position. So, defensively, I will always go into rebound typically. I do like to play in transition, so sometimes I get caught leaking out. But offensively, if I don't think I can get an offensive rebound, I'm not going in there. I'll stay back safety. Here, if you think about the trajectory of the ball, typically a long shot is usually a long rebound. And a missed 3 usually, more often than not, ends up on the backside of the rim. Especially a 3 from the corner, because we're all taught not to shoot short, right? So just on this one, I know with our team, rebounding is going to be a big piece of emphasis for us in Seattle this year. Sadie's does a good job here of having Megan Gustafson boxed out. Mine's starting to come in to get the rebound. So my job is to not let her get that, or it's going to be a problem on film in practice the next day. But as the ball kind of just falls off of this one, I can see that Sadie's isn't going to go to grab it. So I just kind of come in and secure it. I think part of guards rebounding, especially on the defensive end, is the ability to kind of just get it and go, push out in transition and kind of start the flow of offense. Not that our bigs can't do it. They can do breakout dribbles. But their jobs are going to be, their hands are going to be full with a lot of the bigs in this league, trying to keep them off the glass. So a big piece of us is coming in to rebound and just be able to kind of keep it to one possession. That's the hard part of the W, right? If you give teams more than one possession in the WNBA, they'll capitalize on it. And like a dagger, right? If they get an offensive rebound and kick it out for a 3, that's a dagger or a backbreaker, some people will call it, which is what we're trying to avoid. So I'm doing a better job of just trying to read the ball as it comes off and be the second jumper, because if I out jump and miss the ball, then it becomes a problem.
Okay, can I just take a break here? First off, you're making my job really easy right now, because your analysis and your breakdowns and everything that you're given is like already the stuff. Like some of it was I was already going to ask, and then you already say it. You are phenomenal, and that goes into your analyst work. You are made for that. So good for you. This is you're. I don't even have to work right now. We could just let it run. So we got a couple more clips. Looks like we've got a little half court defensive set, maybe a little bit of a scramble.
Yeah, so scramble came out. Something happened here on defense.
Yeah, it definitely a breakdown, and in which that happens, right? Like you, as much as we want to have perfect defensive possessions, half of what you do is scrambling and communicating and trying to figure out how to get matched up and how we're trying to get even. So as best as you can in a clip like this, explain what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, offensively, your job's to create an advantage on the defense, right? And that's exactly what Phoenix is trying to do here against us. So the ball comes out of this, looks like a drive, came cross court to Sam Thomas here. So my job's to keep her out of the middle. On this cut, you have to jump to ball and don't allow the cutter to face cut you essentially. As the ball comes to the baseline, we collapse defensively. I think that's Ezzy and TP come over. Jewel does a good job of dropping down. My job in that sense would be to get to that corner person if Jewel's going to drop on top. So she's the helper. Then I help the person who helped the helper. It's a good tongue twister, but that would essentially be my next progression. But a lot of it is just kind of trying to move with the flow of the ball. The only thing that's dangerous in this game of basketball is the ball, because it's the only thing that can score points. So for me, it's always, where is the ball? What's the next progression? Who do I need to help? That's one of the things that I learned at UConn was Coach Ariama would say, like, look at your teammates that are on the court with you. You know who's really good at defense. You know who needs help. You know who doesn't need help. The people who need help, shade towards them so that you can be in a position to help if they need it. And so that's kind of a lot of my defensive philosophy is like, keep your feet moving, keep your head on a swivel to know, where the ball possibly, maybe there's a mismatch, right? Like Ezzy's not necessarily a mismatch on the wing. If you pull Ezzy out there, she can block your shot. She's super long, super athletic to keep you in front. I don't necessarily need to get out there to help her. If we get a one matchup on our 5, then I might shade a little bit to try and force the ball out of their hands. So yeah, a lot of that's just kind of instinctual and based on matchups as well. Is this person a downhill driver? Let me make sure I'm in the lanes to try and force them to shoot a 3.
Like, I was watching a lot of film on you on defense, and I loved that clip specifically because, as Rachel pointed out, you just steal all of our words, so we don't have much to say. But like the way you're moving, just watching you on this clip, the way you move around, your head's on a swivel, you're looking at your teammates, figuring out where I can help out. And obviously it's a breakdown, but the way you move around and you kind of go, oh, I noticed there's this hole, let me clog that. There's this hole, let me clog that. I think is really impressive. I think it's one of those things on defense that a lot of us talking heads like to look at the stats and say, oh, this person had this many defensive rebounds, this person had this many steals. But like, good defense doesn't necessarily have to come out in the stats. And I think you are a perfect example of that in a simple play like that. I mean, it's obviously not simple and looks exhausting for me, but like, just props on that. I think that is a great example of a really good defensive set.
Thank you. Yeah, positioning is everything. Let's see what we got in this one.
A little bit of a random clip, but whatever, we could talk about it. Just looks like it's a little bit of a skip court pass, deflection on the shot, and you're able to come up with the possession and a foul. So,
Yeah, so Sammy does a good job of getting back here. Our roller is open, so my job's to tag. I tag for a second to try and force D to not look at Gustafson on the roll. So me taking a step in here. So Vonnie's gonna go close out to, that's not D, that's Slocum.
So that's you taking that step in on the roll.
So I'm just trying to clog it so that she can't see that this is a wide open lane. Give Ezzy a second to come back behind her, which she does a good job. Sadie's pushes her over there to make sure that she knows that they're not switching. And then as I'm coming back out to mine, which should be Jenny Sims, I see Vonnie gets Vonnie's arms are so long. So she does a really good job of getting deflection. So on that one, as I was about to go out to box out, I saw that she got the deflection on the shot, go get the ball and try and stay on your feet, but on that one I did not. So we did get the foul call on that one, but part of it is just tagging rollers, being in the right spot. It's not you're not necessarily going to get a point on the stat sheet for being a tagger, but it gives your teammates an opportunity to kind of get back in terms of positioning. So I like what you said. There's a lot of stuff on defense that doesn't end up on the stat sheet. There's a lot of stuff on offense that doesn't end up on the stat sheet. And so, I'm an analyst. I know there are a lot of analysts at times. We are on the road and we are moving. We're doing a lot of stuff. We have to see the box score, because there's 18 teams playing at the same time. But it doesn't always speak to kind of the full extent of, okay, maybe this person's box score wasn't great, across the 40 minutes of the game. But they were on the floor for 36 minutes for a reason. That means they were impacting the game in some sense. It's just, we need to watch the film to see what that impact is.
Totally. Looks like we got a little sideline out of bounds action here.
Yeah, so everybody runs this, like NBA runs it, WNBA runs it. It's a little bit, it's an open set essentially. There's only 2, maybe 3, if you get really creative, maybe 4 options out of it. So the inbounder will inbound the ball, and then essentially, I think this is the back end of the set. So the inbounder will inbound the ball here to the big. So the big's going to set up screen for Maya Jefferson here. D's going to enter it to Breezy. This is going to initiate either a back screen or a down screen between D and Maya Jefferson. They go for the back screen here. I end up switching this one with Vonnie and going under right direct. That's a tough shot to turn around and get your feet into. So I come under that one directly. The end of this play is typically ends up in either a single or a double stagger. It's a double here for D coming off. So Jewel does a really good job, Jewel and Vonnie, of talking that one through. And there's a single on the backside for Cunningham. So I positioned myself in closer to that passing lane than I did on the other one, knowing that if she's going to change sides of the floor, that means she's looking at that side of the floor. So when you're defending a passer on a single or a double stagger screen, a lot of the times you want to be in the passing lane as much as possible. And that's kind of where we've come with here. A lot of people won't switch this if it's a bigger guard that wants to post. I playing on Phoenix, I knew D was probably going to go off the stagger side on the backside. So we kind of went with that switch. But here again, like, we did a good job of getting out and contesting. So yeah, a lot of it's just like, when your person passes the ball, your job doesn't end. So your job is to get into passing lanes. That's the toughest part of defense. And the part that we would probably expose as much as possible on the offensive end is the moment you pass the ball, that person's actually the most dangerous person on the floor, because if you take a second to relax, back cut, come off a ball screen, come off a flare, come off a handoff. That's a big piece that I use to my game. The moment I let it go, I'm probably going to run somewhere else. A lot of my friends who have to guard me are like, why do you move so much? I'm like, because that's the only way I can get open.
You're that player that everyone hates to play in pickup because you're using all your energy.
Go. That's a really good clip. That was a really good clip to end on, because that was a really good defensive possession as a team by you guys, I gotta say. So looking forward to more of that from you all this season. We got a few rapid fires if you're cool with it. Take all the time you need. Doesn't have to, rapid fire is a loose term. Yeah. You get 3 snaps before you have to answer. No. Who's your WNBA GOAT?
Maya Moore.
You didn't even hesitate.
That was so quick. I love it.
The only person that I saw, she was the first women's basketball player I ever saw on TV, but it was when she was in college. We didn't have that opportunity in Canada, which is why the Canadian game was such a big thing this year. But yeah, and then I played against her. That was really hard. Defense was really hard that day. But yeah, that's just, I don't know. For me, she won at every level, like on everything you could think of, like she just won. But I also play alongside Diana, so I do know that, I know how D is. D is a go-to.
Yeah.
I think by the end of everything, when it's said and done, Jewel Lloyd will also be on that list.
Oh,
first of all, yes, I love the way I love that you take it.
Once you play with certain people, so I don't think you can always understand how good someone is until like you're in practice with them every single day. Yeah. Like the same thing, I felt a little bit of the same thing with D. Like, you knew how good she was, but then you're like, oh, like it's even better than you thought. And Jewel just being here for the last 2 weeks, I'm like, whoo, there are a lot of things in practice that she does, or she can score in so many different ways. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
that Jewel Lloyd game winner in like on the corner sideline in the bubble, like lives in my mind rent free. Never going anywhere.
Happens a lot.
Down 2 with 10 seconds left. I think I know the answer. Are you taking a 3 to win it, or are you trying to tie the game?
Down to 10 seconds left. Depends on my coaches. Some coaches will take the 2. I'll probably
Your
take the
coach.
3. Oh, honestly, I'd probably be more open on the 3 than on the 2. If you go in the lane, everybody's coming to block you.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, block and 1 or taking a charge, which gets you more hyped?
I never block anybody, so that's a pretty hype situation. I get like 5 a year. I'm more likely to take a charge. Well, actually, I
Okay.
do get in one, but no charges. I don't know. I get real hype on charges because it really pisses off the other people. I enjoy that.
I love it. Who do you think is the biggest trash talker in the league? I know it's not you. Don't worry.
It's not me. No, I'm learning. I have to have
I'm
to take like
learning.
trash talk classes. Like, I feel like it's a thing now. Everybody does it, so like let me join in. Biggest trash talker. I was on Diana's team, but she used to trash talk like a lot.
Sure, for sure.
Like very obviously. Someone else talked a lot that I can't think of right now. I'm gonna go with Diana because I can't think of who else always talked.
We can
Maybe
always
when I
come.
was younger.
Always a safe bet. It's always a safe.
It was somebody in AAU. Those rude people.
When I was young, when I was a rookie, and I was not saying anything to anybody. I was just nodding my head at everything.
Who do you think is the toughest player you've personally had to defend? And that can be in the W, in
College.
Canada, college, youth, whatever.
In all honesty, in FIBA, Alba Torrens, who plays for Spain.
Oh yeah.
I was
I'm
guarding
very
her,
familiar with Albatorans. Yes.
like Alba in her prime when I was 16. My goodness, like that was her and Palau. Palau was really awesome too. They're longtime point guard. Just when you think you're faster than someone and they're like way older than you, and then they just like destroy you. Yeah, there was a couple rude awakenings in my 16-year-old national team, like from 16 to I'd say like 20, when we were playing against some of the best, like France, Australia, Spain. They were all like USA obviously, but like they were moving back then. So that was pretty tough. And Courtney Williams in college, she's still tough to guard in the WNBA, but we played USF quite a few times at UConn. She was a tough guard just with her ability to stop on a dime and get up and get into her pull up whenever she wanted to. And because she's the main focal point at USF, they ran everything through her and screens. And so she was a tough guard in college for sure. Still is to this day. Don't have to guard her as much this year.
Last question before Rachel wraps it up. What's the youngest age you remember playing basketball, like on a team?
On a team, I actually remember my 2nd grade. I can like remember most of my years of basketball because my team was so similar. We only had like 1 or 2 kids not transfer, but like weren't on our team, called Hamilton Transway. Like I still hang out with them when I go home back to Canada. We still go to dinners and stuff. And now we're all like 27. But yeah, I can remember 4th grade mainly because there was a game. My dad was my coach. So my whole life I had my dad is my coach. There was a game that we were playing against Brantford, I want to say. And I was not playing good. And then we lost. But I needed to play better. He was very hard on me. But yeah, I just remember that game and just like him pulling me off and being like, we could have won if you played good.
You got better.
I know everybody's parenting skills are different, but my parents were very good at telling you when you were very bad and very good. Like if you were very bad, they told you were very bad. If you're very good, they told you very good. And I mean, they ended up with 2 out of 3 kids in professional sports. So I guess it worked. But I vividly remember that game. I was on the bench crying.
My dad literally made me cry. I remember he like wouldn't talk to me, and I am not a professional athlete, so you know, whatever.
We'll see how it goes when I have my own kids.
Yeah. I mean, when you're thrown in that situation, it's tough when you're that competitive. But
it worked. I appreciate it now, but back then I was there crying.
It's hard when you've got your dad as your coach for half your freaking youth, man. But It's good and bad, depending on how you look at it. But yeah, we are so happy to have had you on the show. Honestly, full transparency, you set the bar higher than it's ever been for Film Room. I've learned something. I know everyone else learned something. I could sit here and just soak in everything you're talking about for another 3 hours if we could. So thank you so much for your time today and just taking us through some of that film. I cannot wait to get back on here, and we will have you back because it was that good, and you are that good at what you do, analyzing and talking about the game. Hopefully, a year from now, once the season is done and we've got some great content from your time here, your first year with the Storm. So good luck this season. We wish you the best of luck. We'll be cheering for you.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me on.